Mr. Wood, can you confirm that the Kansas Open Meetings regulations and notifications were met?
Yes, they were.
Okay, so I will call to order the Law Enforcement Citizen Review Board meeting, September 3rd, 2025 at 4 p.m., and we'll go to roll call.
Thank you, Deborah Shetler.
Here.
Aaron Melby.
Here.
Jason Gibson. Lowell Moore. Alini Savesky.
Present.
Ron Stiles.
Here.
Katrina Blecha.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, so we will, actually, we might just go, oh, what?
I was never called.
Oh.
Tina Berenger. I'm here.
I apologize. Tina Berenger.
Here.
Thank you.
Good catch. Okay, I thought maybe we could just go down the line a little bit we have 2 new members of the board, and we could just say our name again and how long we've been maybe on the board and what brought us to the board, how we were interested, and we don't have to start down there. Okay, we can start here.
Hi, I'm Alini Savesky. I've been on the board for a year now. I'm part of the Human Relations Board, so I'm just a representative from that board here.
Lowell Moore, just re-up my tenure here, been 4 years. I joined the board because I really like to see what the Citizen Review Board. Hello? Do I have to start over? Lowell Moore. I just started my, re-up my tenure, so I'm going on to my 4th year. I joined the Citizen Review Board because I was interested in what it did and how it acted, and if I can be a sort of watchdog for the community.
And my name is Deb Shetler, and this is my 2nd term on the board. And I was interested in the board. I've done some things in the community with restorative justice and things like that, and I was very interested in how the police are present in our community.
All right, I'm Aaron Melby. I'm the law enforcement rep on the review board, and I joined the board because I wanted to help the community see what we do on a day-to-day basis and get a better understanding of law enforcement.
I'm Tina Berenger. My term will be up in 26, I think it is. I joined because I support our law enforcement and just the education I can get from this.
My name's Ron Stiles. I'm a retired police officer. I served with the city 43 years. And I just wanted to give another perspective on the board and some of the knowledge that I have.
I'm Katrina Blecha, and I was a police dispatcher actually for almost 5 years.
All right, so I'm Jacob Wood.
Sorry, he had me restart. I didn't have the button on. I'm Katrina Blecha, and this is my first meeting, and I was a police dispatcher for almost 5 years and just wanted to continue to support law enforcement however I could.
All right. So I'm Jacob Wood. I'm the board liaison, but this will actually be my last meeting as the board liaison. So for the past 6 years, I've been the deputy city manager, and I just got promoted to city manager. So Sean Hennessy, assistant city manager, will be taking over this spot. The board, as you will find out here a little bit later when we talk about the mission of the board, when we do training, is actually an advisory board to the city manager. So I can't be involved in the same way that I have been in the past. So I'll pass the torch off to Sean after this meeting. You do get to hear me go through board orientation one last time. So I know this is everybody's favorite meeting because I just read stuff to you. But you'll get to do that one more time, and then I will just fade off into the sunset. So go ahead.
I'm Angela Crawford, and I do administrative for the police department.
I'm Chief C.J. Wise. I've been here for almost 2.5 years now.
I'm Captain James Feldman. I'm filling in for Captain Rachel Larson since she's unavailable and had been previously in this position at the inception. So I'm the liaison for the board.
Okay, now we'll move to, welcome everyone, glad you're here. We'll move to the approval of the minutes from our June 4th of 2025 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look over those minutes? So is there a motion to accept the minutes as written?
I move that we accept the motion, or accept the minutes.
Is there a second?
I second.
Is there any discussion? All right, so we'll vote on that. So to approve the minutes as written, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. And so the minutes pass. And we'll go to staff report update, quarterly report.
It's you.
Actually, I do not have it since this I grabbed. If you have any questions on it, I probably can answer some for you based on the numbers that you were presented.
And this is what you're talking about, right? These were in our packet?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
does anyone have any questions about these? Okay. And annual report?
We don't have an annual report today.
Okay. Oh, that's the wrong, sorry, I was on the wrong page. Okay, so new business, which is introduction of board members, which we did, and board orientation.
Okay, so board orientation is something that's required of all citizen boards once annually. So September is the time that we get to do that. So I've got about 432 slides I'm going to go through. That's not true, not that many. If I can get this to... So in your board packet, you received just the receipt of, basically there's a form that you have to sign that says that you received all of these documents. And those documents are the resolution that kind of outlines how citizen boards work for the city of Salina, the resolution that adopts the ethics policy for the city of Salina, and then Citizens Guide to Open Government, which has kind of a broad overview of the Kansas Open Meetings laws and Kansas Open Records laws. So that was in your packet. And then along with that, come on, don't do this to me. Why aren't you? You may have to run the slideshow. And then
this is my role here.
Yeah. And then also in that packet or in the board documents is the ordinance that created this board that kind of outlines how the board was set up and then what the board is supposed to do. You can go to the next slide. So this is, and I'm going to buzz through these. I'm not going to go in as excruciating detail as I've have in the past. If you would like to see that, I can send you a link to a previous meeting where I did go through it pretty excruciatingly, and you can watch it. So, I'll just hit the highlights. So. This is just a list of boards and commissions across the city and different types of boards that the city has. We have quite a few, and they all have kind of a little bit different role. If you'll go to the next slide. This board is an advisory board, so it has the power to advise and make recommendations to the city. So as we talk about what this board is supposed to do, it's really advisory to the police department in terms of review of policy, and then it's also advisory to the city manager in terms of review of cases. And we'll go over that in a little bit more detail later on. Next slide. And I'm not going to go through this in great detail. This resolution number 177469, you have that in your packet. This kind of just outlines the role of citizen boards within the city. Just talks about how, you know, we like to have citizen input, so we have created boards that can provide that to our staff and to the elected body. Next slide. Guidelines for operation, participation is expected. So we do expect you to, if you're going to, you know, volunteer to be on a board, we'd like you to be here. We can't have meetings if we don't have members of the board, and that has been a problem in the past. But actually, for quite some time, we've done pretty well on this board without having any issues. So no compensation for this. There are some rules and procedures that just kind of talk about how a board operates in terms of you making a motion and, you know, passing items through. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And then annual training is required as part of this. As part of the board resolution, it says that we have to train annually, and so that's what we're doing today. Staff responsibilities. Citizen boards aren't given authority to direct staff, so you can't really tell us, you know, we have to do one thing or another, but you can advise us. So what that means is you can't come here and just say, hey, I want 1,000 reports about all this different stuff. You can talk to us about it. If you want to review a policy or that sort of thing, we're happy to do that, but you can't direct staff, you know, to do one thing or another. Next slide. A meeting quorum. So in order to have a meeting, we have to have a majority of the total membership of the board. So for this board, we have 9 members. We need to have 5 people here in order to host a meeting. Special meetings from time to time. If there is a case that we need to review, and if we had a case that we were done reviewing and we needed to get it before the board, we may have a special meeting. We haven't done a lot of those, quite simply because we don't have a lot of cases to review. But there could be a circumstance where we would want to have a special meeting in order to review a case. Public participation. So if you watch city commission meetings or other board meetings, generally we have a citizens forum where we allow the public to come and speak. That's not necessarily a requirement of any Kansas open meetings laws or anything like that, but it is something that we do offer. People that are in the public are allowed to speak during that period of time. Participation is only really allowed when they're recognized. So it's not, you can't come and sit in the audience and yell. You can't participate in the conversation, once the commission or once the board has said, we're discussing this and citizens forum is closed, they're not allowed to take part in that discussion. Debate motions and second required. Basically, this is how action happens, and you guys have already done that today. We had a motion and a second to approve the minutes, and then you bring that back to the board for discussion. There was none at this point, but there have been times in the past where we've misspelled somebody's name or left a word out that needed to be added to, and so that would happen during that discussion. And then the board chair takes a vote to pass that motion on. I'm just going to give you a kind of a high level on the Kansas Open Meetings Act. If you'll go to the next slide. Some of the things that kind of get boards caught up or get boards in trouble are executive sessions, and this is a board that has executive sessions. There are other boards that don't do that, but because we are reviewing kind of sensitive information, later on today we're going to have a review of a case where you will go into executive session. You'll go into the back room, they'll show you some video or have a discussion. There will be some information that you find out in that setting that's not public information, so that all happens in executive session. Serial communications is an issue that happens with boards, and that would be if you have a conversation with other members of the board. So like, let's say I send you an email and you reply all and it becomes a discussion, then that actually starts to be classified as a meeting, and that would be required to be open and public. So that's an issue. So if I send you an email, or if Sean or any of these folks send you an email, sends it to the entire board, don't reply all, don't forward that email. If you want to reply, you can do it to the individual, but you don't want to have everybody involved in that email chain. one of the issues that you guys won't have to deal with, but that we've dealt with as a city, is if we fail to provide notice in the correct way, then that's a violation of Kansas Open Meetings Act. That's actually part of the reason why the very first statement in the agenda says, confirm that the Kansas Open Meetings regulations were met, is so that you can ask us, did we send out the proper notification? That notification is an email notification that goes out. So when we send it out in our system, and it goes to everybody who's requested to be notified about this meeting. And so anybody could come to the city or sign up and say, hey, I want to be notified about this meeting or any myriad of public meetings that we have, and we are required to send them notice anytime that a meeting is going to happen. You can go to the next slide. And a meeting is really any time a majority of the members gather. Keep going there. I've already talked about notice. We're required to do notice, and that has to go basically through our system to anybody that's requested it. Can go to the next slide. Penalties is not something you're really ever going to have to deal with. Generally, if there's a complaint, it goes to the Attorney General's office. They do an investigation. What they normally do is they require additional training. Sometimes you'll see a small fine, but that wouldn't be something that an individual from a board would ever have to pay. It would generally be picked up by the city at large. Next slide. Man, I've already covered this. Serial communication, the big deal here is don't reply all to an email. Don't email the group, and you shouldn't have any issues with that. Next slide. So the Kansas Open Meetings Act doesn't have any real requirements about what happens at a meeting. It basically just says if you're going to have a meeting, you have to make notice, and if you have an agenda, you have to provide the agenda to anybody that wants it. But there are no real, it doesn't talk about the layout of the meeting. It doesn't say that you have to do it in any certain order. So as long as we do those things, provide notice, provide an agenda if we have one, then you're really following or meeting the intent of the Kansas Open Meetings Act. Next slide. I'm not going to go through all of these. There's no public right to speak. I think we've already talked about that. You don't have to allow the public to speak, but it is something that traditionally we do here. If you're going to have a meeting, you actually probably saw me go and Angela shut the door, and it is a requirement that we actually leave that door open so that people know if they walk by here, they know we're having a meeting, which is kind of a strange thing, but we can't be behind closed doors. We have to be open to the public. People have to know that we're here, and it has to be accessible to them. You can't do any secret ballots. And the only actual requirement for keeping of minutes is that you have to record the motion that takes you into executive session. The rest of that is really just kind of traditional. It's something that we do. Keep going. Executive session. So there's a formal motion that takes you into executive session, and it is kind of prescribed by state law. It has to say certain things, and so that whenever we do that, generally I just give it to Sergeant Melby, and he reads the motion, and it has everything. We'll provide that to you anytime we need to go into executive session so that you know exactly what it is that you need to say. So I don't think it's not a huge issue. Next. And that's just an example of what that motion would look like. So that's it for the Open Meetings Act. Any questions? I know I'm buzzing through this real fast, but I don't want to keep you here till 7 o'clock tonight. So any questions on the Kansas Open Meetings Act? Okay. Ethics policy. I'm going to buzz through this a little bit as well. I'm not going to hit everything that's in the ordinance, but I will. This is the part where I kind of have to read some of it to you because I think it's important that we all just know what it is that it says. So Section 1, the policy, the governing body of the city of Salina acknowledges the importance of sustaining the public's confidence in the integrity of its local government through independent, fair, and impartial local governance administration. Neither public office nor public employment can be used for personal gain. I think that's probably the biggest point here is it's not intended to be for personal gain. The policy of the city of Salina shall be to promote and assure ethical conduct by its elected and appointed officers and its employees. Go to the next one. Application and purpose. So who does this apply to? It applies to city staff, the governing body, anybody that's appointed by the governing body. So it applies to members of boards and commissions as well. I'm not sure that there's a whole lot of opportunity that you would be able to make public gain off of what you learn or what you see here. But let's say you get into executive session and you see something and you think, oh, I could go and consult with I could talk with the perpetrator of this, and I could consult with them or something, and you're not really supposed to try and make money or have any personal gain based on what you would learn and know from one of these situations or what you learn in this setting. Go to the next one. So general ethical principles. City officers and employees shall abide by the following principles. Place the public trust and interests of the city first. Never intentionally act outside of the scope of the authority prescribed by your official duties. Exercise fair, honest, unbiased judgment in one's role as a decision maker and advisor. Do not knowingly misrepresent or withhold facts or information for the purpose of achieving a desired outcome. Do not seek, accept, or offer any gifts or favors of significant value, which are either intended by a source to have effect upon influencing the objectivity and advisor. And this one I think is probably, I've got it underlined here because this is probably one area where this board is different than most other boards, because you do go into executive session and you do see sensitive information. It says, do not disclose or use information received in the course of performing one's duties that is to be maintained in confidence. So, whatever discussions happens in executive session, that's for this board. It's not to be shared outside of that room. So you are going to see some things in the course of being on this board that, you'll see names of officers. You may know the name of the complainant. You'll see some of those things. That's not to be shared outside of that room. And I'm going to go to the next one. So ethics policy. So basically, if you violate one of these premises, the violation by board member can result in a private notice or warning, private or public censure, or removal from office at the discretion of the governing body. So, if you were to share information that you heard in executive session and somebody were to find out about it and make a complaint, that would actually go to the city commission, and they could either have a discussion about it privately and say, hey, no, you shouldn't have done that, or they could have the effect of kicking you off the board if they wanted to do that. Next slide. So this is just specifically about the Law Enforcement Community Review Board. Go to the next slide. This was the ordinance that created this board was Ordinance 211046. So it was done in the year 2020, and it is in code. If you look at the municipal code, it's section 30-82. So the mission of this board is to advise and assist the police department in policy development related to racial or other bias-based policing by police officers in the police department pursuant to state law and the amendments, to promote, advocate, and educate citizens about the existence and purpose of the board, and to assist the city manager, the chief of police, and the city commission in development of racial or other bias-based policing comprehensive plan. And then next, so there's really 5 kind of points for this board. Provide recommendations resulting from board-initiated review of police department policies other than those policies addressing topics such as intelligence. So there are some policies that you don't review, and those are kind of the tactical things that we don't publicly talk about. And then the last, and I think probably the most pertinent point here, is the review and advise the chief of police as to whether preliminary administrative determinations of the pre-disciplinary status of all complaints of excessive use of force or racial or other bias-based policing by police officers are supported by substantial competent evidence. And obviously that was written by a lawyer. But basically what it says is that you will review complaints of excessive use of force and complaints of racial or bias-based policing and basically determine if there's enough evidence to substantiate those complaints or not. So that's really, and that's what we'll do here in just a minute. We have a case, we haven't had a case in a long time, but we'll review a case and you will get to make a determination. So that is that's board orientation, quick, down and dirty. If there's any questions, or if you have any, something comes up in the future and you have a question about any of this stuff, feel free to email me or Sean or CJ and say, hey, this came up and I'd like to know what's going on. So happy to answer any questions if you have any. I know I buzzed through that pretty quickly. I'm getting pretty good at it now that I've done it like 3 or 4 times. So. Okay. With that, I think we can move on to the next item.
Okay, so chair and vice chair nominations is where we're at.
That's right.
Yes.
So, yeah, this is something that we have to do annually, and I don't actually recall who the vice chair was. Leisha Strang, and she went off the board. Yeah, that's right. So, Deborah's been the board chair now for, I think this was her 2nd year.
Yeah.
She's doing a great job, so if you want to keep her in that'd be fine with me. But if anybody else has any interest, I think now would be the time to kind of state that, and we need a motion and a second for a chair and a motion and a second for a vice chair. And just, for you as board members, we're, as staff, not going to let you falter. I mean, if you've got questions or you need help getting through the meeting, we know you don't do this as I sit through one of these meetings every other week, so I've done it a lot, and it's not a big deal. But when you're only doing 3 or 4 meetings a year, it's not as easy, and so we won't let you falter. We'll help you get through the meeting if we need to. But Deborah's done a great job, and I'd be happy for her to stay on if the board was interested in that.
Well, is there anyone else who would be interested in being the chair? Mr. Wood is right. They don't let you, mess up, or, it's not hard. Just kind of look over and make sure you're on the right track. And we would need, even if I stayed as chair, we do need a vice chair.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and the vice chair would just fill in duties whenever the chair is not available.
Yeah.
So, and that doesn't happen very often. So.
Would the motion just be for the chair at this moment, or I have to?
I think
both?
you could do one for both if you
Okay.
wanted to. That would be fine. Or you could do 2. Doesn't matter.
I would like to make a motion that Deborah stays on, if you're willing to accept it.
I second it.
Is there any discussion? I would stay on. We do need a vice chair, though, if someone is interested, or if anyone wants to appoint someone. Can we vote on both of them at the same time,
Well,
or should
yeah,
we do
that'd
it
be fine.
once? One each.
We already have a motion and a second, so I'd probably vote. And then you
Okay,
can
so
take another motion.
the motion is that I remain as chair, and there is a second. Is there any discussion? So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so the motion passes. Okay. Are there any, does anyone want to volunteer to be vice chair, or we could entertain a motion for someone to be vice chair?
Lowell, are you interested?
Are you, twisting my arm, yeah, I could do that. As long as you make every meeting now.
I make a motion that Lowell Moore be the vice chair.
Second it.
Second. All right, is there any discussion? So the motion is that Lowell Moore would be the vice chair. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, so the motion passes. So that Lowell Moore will be the vice chair. So we can move to other business.
I don't have anything. Other business is really a time for anybody on the board. If you have something you want to bring up, or if there's a policy you want to discuss, or a specific question that you want us to look into, or anything like that, we can do that. So,
I would like to ask, is there any chance that we could have the SWAT team come and tell us what they're all about, what their process is?
Yeah, we'd be glad to do that. And normally when we don't have a case, we try to do some like education pieces.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we'd be glad to, we can have that scheduled for the next meeting.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions, ideas? Okay, so we would move to Citizens Forum now. We don't have anyone here, so we can move to executive session, which we do have today.
I think we'll need about 20 minutes.
20 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was a complaint of bias-based policing that we received on June 30th. Police departments reviewed that, and so it's time for the board to review that as well. So you got the motion.
I move that the board recess into executive session for 20 minutes for the purpose of deliberating in the manner outlined in Salina Code Section 30-93D upon the subject of whether the preliminary administrative determination by the Chief of Police in relation to a complaint regarding the conduct of a police officer is supported by substantial competent evidence based upon the need to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel pursuant to KSA 75-4319B1. The open meeting will resume in this room at 4:51 p.m.
Do we need a second for that? Okay, so we have a motion to go into executive session. Is there a second?
A second.
So all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, we will go into executive session till 4:51.
administrative determination by the chief of police in relation to a complaint regarding the conduct of a police officer is supported by substantial competent evidence based upon the need to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel pursuant to KSA 75-4319B1. The open meeting will resume in this room at 5:13.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll adjourn again. Board would request 5 more minutes of executive session.
Okay. I move that the board recess into executive session for 5 minutes for the purpose of deliberating in the manner outlined in Salina Code Section 30-93D upon the subject of whether the preliminary administrative determination by the chief of police in relation to a complaint regarding the conduct of a police officer is supported by substantial competent evidence based upon the need to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel pursuant to KSA 75-4319B1. The open meeting will resume in this room at 5:19 p.m.
A motion is made. Do we have a second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed? All right, we'll adjourn. Okay, we're going to request that we have 7 minutes this time, and we're going to get it done. Okay.
All right, I move the board to recess into executive session for 7 minutes for the purpose of deliberating in the manner outlined in Salina Code Section 30-93D upon the subject of whether the preliminary administrative determination by the chief of police in relation to a complaint regarding the conduct of a police officer is supported by substantial competent evidence based upon the need to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel pursuant to KSA 75-4319B1. The open meeting will resume in this room at 5:28 p.m.
We have a motion, so do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor to go back into executive session, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we'll go back in. So are we ready to go ahead?
Well, actually, we do need to wait till 5:28.
Oh, okay.
So.
Okay.
Part of
Talk
those
longer.
fun rules.
Oh, yeah. So upon returning from executive session and reviewing the complaint, the board makes its advisory determination that the preliminary administrative determination of the status of the complaint is supported by substantial competent evidence. All in favor of this, say aye. Or show a sign of hands, maybe? Aye.
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 And opposed?
Aye.
And so the motion passes 4-2.
That'll work.
Okay. All right, so is there any other conversation we need to have?
I do have one question. Is it possible, because I know when we're looking at a lot of these cases, there's a lot of policies and there's a lot of information that we don't have to make judgments on. Is it possible to get copies of policies whenever that policy is aligned with a complaint?
Yeah, definitely. From now on, we can start anything that's related to it. We'll make copies and bring that with that to make it a little easier.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, if there's no other information that anyone has, then I would make a motion that this meeting is adjourned. Anyone have a second?
I second.
All right, the meeting is adjourned.